Christian soldiers marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Christ the royal master leads against the foe, forward into battle, see his banners go. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Oh, for a faith that will not shrink, though pressed by every foe, that will not tremble on the brink of any earthly woe, that will not murmur or complain beneath a chastening rod, but in the hour of grief or pain will lean upon its God. A faith that shines more bright and clear when tempests rage without, that when in danger knows no fear, in darkness feels no doubt. Lord, give us such a faith as this, and then whatever may come, we'll taste and hear the hallowed bliss of an eternal home. A charge to keep I have, a God to glorify, a never-dying soul to save, and fitted for the sky, to serve the present age, my calling to fulfill. Oh, may it all my powers engage to do my Master's will. Arm me with jealous care, as in thy sight to live, and O thy servant, Lord, prepare a strict account to give. Help me to watch and pray, and on thyself rely. Assured if I my trust betray, I shall forever die. Rise up, O men of God, have done with lesser things. Give heart and mind and soul and strength to serve the King of Kings. Rise up, O men of God, his kingdom tarries long. Bring in the day of brotherhood and end the night of wrong. Rise up, O men of God, the church for you doth wait. Her strength unequal to her task, rise up and make her great. Lift high the cross of Christ, tread where his feet have trod. As brothers of the Son of Man, rise up, O men of God. Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition. Let's edify one another. Welcome to another edition of Study to Show Yourselves Approved, to show ourselves approved unto God, workmen that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth, as is the verse from 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, where we get our motto, our justification for this class. We are beginning at the beginnings, the subtopic, subheading of our class, and we are studying in the book of Genesis, which is the good place to begin at the beginning. It is the book of beginnings. And as we have been studying, we are in the book of Genesis and the chapter 19. We are in dealing with the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, which, as you are probably well aware of, are a couple of wicked cities. There were more than just Sodom and Gomorrah, by the way, that were destroyed. In fact, it talks about the entirety of the cities of the plain, with the exception of one city. A few chapters before, we discovered how there was a great battle with the cities of the plains, and the men of Sodom and Gomorrah and the let's see here, and Admah and Zeboam and Bela, or Zoar, were brought under the yoke, were taken captive of the kings of Amraphel, or excuse me, the kings of Shinar, Elasar, Elam, and Goim. And Abram had to rescue Lot and basically all of the citizens of these 5 cities: Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboam, and Bela. And of all of those 5 cities of the plains, we know that at least one was saved, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities of the plains were destroyed. We left off in Genesis chapter 19 and verse 15. Well, actually, that was where we left off. Oops. Back here. Save. 15. Lot had been told by the angels that they were going to destroy Sodom because the cry of that was waxed great before the face of the Lord. It was so great of a cry. And we mentioned the fact that where did the cry about them, or where did the report about them come from? And we looked at was it not this one? We looked at let me get it. No, that's not it. There we are. 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 7 and 8, where we are told by Peter that God delivered just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation, that means life, of the wicked. For that righteous man, meaning of Lot, dwelling among them in seeing and hearing, vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. In other words, he was the one that was crying unto God. As we look at this particular verse, the idea of vexing his soul labor down, or wear down, toiled, wear with toil, oppressed with a filthy life. He vexed his soul. It wore away at him from day to day, in regards to their wickedness. Um, so we looked at that, and heading back over to Genesis 19 and verse 14, Lot goes out by order of the angels. He goes out and he speaks unto his sons-in-law, and we talked a bit about sons-in-law and how the ESV mentions it. It was the men that were betrothed unto to marry his daughters, whereas the word that we looked at simply means, okay, come on, get back down there. When you look at sons-in-law, for the example, it literally means a relative by marriage. Bridegroom, husband, son-in-law. It appears son-in-law, daughter's husband, bridegroom, or husband. Appears 24 times in the King James. 8 is bridegroom, 7 times as son, 5 is son-in-law. For example, when Saul says to David, "You shall be my son-in-law," when he gives Michal, was that when he gave Michal, or when he promises him one of his daughters? That's when Saul was trying to kill David and wanted him to go get 100 foreskins of the Philistines. David went out and got himself 200 of them. And so they ended up giving him Michal, the king's daughter. And so David became Saul's son-in-law. And so the difference in the ESV makes it sound as if this was people that were engaged. The Bible, the text actually makes it sound as if they were actually already married. Except bring, by, where, carry away, drawn, fetch, etc. That's interesting. Laka. To marry. Receive, take a wife. Sons-in-law, which took a wife, took his daughters to wife. The idea is not, the idea behind the words is not one that is promised, but rather one that it has already happened. Which again is one of the reasons that it lends itself more, for me and my understanding, to the fact that Lot had more than just 2 daughters. He had 2 daughters left that were virgins, and he had other daughters that had already been married away. And that's the reason the language, the wording, and the tense of the words. Sons-in-law, married, past tense. These all speak to the fact that this was not something to happen in the future, but something that had already happened. Good afternoon, Teresa. Good afternoon, Maureen. Good to see you, my sisters. So that's, again, just throwing that in there, bringing us all up to date. The fact of the matter is that Lot did not seem serious, or his sons-in-law did not take him seriously. That's the two ways to interpret this particular sentence, but he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. So either he seemed as if he was crazy, or seemed as if he was making a joke. And all three of the texts that I was just looking at, KJV, ASV, and ESV, lend credence to the idea that he was not being serious. They didn't take him seriously. And when I picture Lot coming and just picture the scene, I picture Lot in shock, still being shell shocked. In other words, I mean, let's look at this again with these eyes. These guys come in to the city. Lot invites them in under the protection of his roof. Suddenly, the entire city, every single man in the city, which includes, by the way, his son-in-laws, as we mentioned before, surround his house. The men of the city, the men of Sodom, old and young, all the people from every quarter surround his house and want to do wickedly with these men. They want to molest him. Lot goes out and intercedes, says, no, don't do this. No, they're under my protection. Do not do this wicked deed. Here, I'll let you use my daughters instead so that you're not going against nature. Which, of course, brings the question, which is more heinous of a crime, that of sodomization or rape? And in the eyes of Lot, of course, the sodomization was, because it's against nature, against the way God created us. Now, that's what Lot looks at it as, and he says, don't do this. Here, I've got these two daughters. You can you can satisfy yourself on these. And they're like, no, that's not good enough. Bring those guys out. And then they say, who are you? You're a stranger too. You just came in among us, and now you're going to be a judge. They've totally forgotten the fact that if it wasn't for his uncle saving them, they wouldn't have homes. They would be slaves. It is also interesting to note, did you notice all the men? That means even the king of Sodom was there. So this is going to shock the pudding, out of you. That these people are willing to do this to the men that are under your protection, and that they are going to turn on you like ravening wolves, even though you've spent 10 plus years among them, living among them, being their neighbor, helping them out. And if it hadn't been for the messengers behind him on the other side of the door pulling him back inside the house, Lot would have been torn limb from limb. If it hadn't been, and then on top of that, Lot having had his life flash before his eyes, as it were, um, he sees them. Good afternoon or evening. Good morning, Sam. Lot sees these guys being struck with blindness, and so they can't even find the door. That's going to impress upon him and stun him even more. And so then he receives bad news saying that the Lord's going to destroy this war place. Can you see the buildup of mental shock upon poor Lot? Shock after shock after shock. To where, as he's trying to process this, he is sent to speak unto his sons-in-law and say, "Up, get you out of this place." He seems as one that's just mocking him because he's got that nervous laughter because he's still trying to process. Hey, Ruel. Now, I'm not saying this is exactly what went down. I'm saying this is my picture of it as I go through and I see this. I see a man who is in complete shock. A man who has been so vexed with the wickedness of the deeds, but he never thought it would touch him in exactly this way. And then it did. So they don't take him seriously. And morning arrives, morning comes, as it often does. Every night, for some reason, morning comes afterwards. Can't figure that one out, can you? Sam, you've been around the block a few times. Have you ever figured out why morning always comes after evening? Anyway, CJ's over there shaking his head and going, there goes the keyboard. And when the morning arose, the angels then, I told you. The angels hasten Lot. So he says, your time's up. You got to get out of here. Take your wife, your 2 daughters, which are here. Not the ones that are over there with those other guys. Pick the 2 daughters that are here. And get out, lest you be consumed in the iniquity of the city. Now, remember, 2 Peter chapter 2 has told us that Lot was completely vexed with the lifestyle of this city. He was completely vexed with the wickedness day after day. And so now the messengers are giving him the opportunity of a lifetime. They're giving him a lifeline. Get out of the city, lest you be consumed with them. And he still lingers because remember, his home is there, his daughters, his sons-in-law are there, his neighbors, his friends are there. Everything he has is still here in the city. So the men simply grab his hand and his hand of his wife and the hands of his 2 daughters, and they bring him out of the city and set him on his way. And they said, go, get. Don't escape for thy life. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest you be consumed. And Lot suddenly comes to his senses. You see him wake up, and he's like, Lord, I can't run that fast. I can't run that far. I just know that if I try, bad's gonna happen to me. I'm gonna die. I can't go that fast. That far. How about this little city over here? Can I, what if I just run to that city? Would that be acceptable? Again, I'm paraphrasing. So Lot says, Lot follows in the footsteps of his uncle and bargains with God and says, okay, now, hey, this is a little one. This little city over here to flee is near, and I think I can make that one. Um, you know, let me go to that one and instead of having to run clear to the mountain. And isn't it a little city? It's so insignificant. It's not that bad. Let me go there, and my soul shall live. I love how he says, "Is it not a little one?" Um, and and God, He hears the plea, He understands, and He accepts the bargain. I'll not overthrow that one, but you've got to run fast, and you got to make time. And this city was Zoar. Remember, that was the city known as Bela in a couple chapters ago. Now it's called Zoar, because of the way God letting him escape to it. Now, Lot has very little time. Morning's dawning. He's got until the sun comes up to get to Zoar. So when the sun rises upon the earth, Lot is entering into Zoar. And that's when all of this fire and brimstone comes down upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and that which grew upon the ground. So he totally wiped out the cities of the plain. That means Admah and what do we say? It was Admah and Zeboim. So we have Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim. These were the cities of the plain that were overthrown. And he totally wiped out all the vegetation, everything that grew upon the ground. And you remember that one of the reasons that Lot is over here in this area is because it was a lush, very beautiful and fertile ground. And now it became infertile. Brimstone. We all know what brimstone is, right? The best definition for brimstone is actually sulfur. It's flammable. I don't know why they said inflammable, but it's flammable, which means that it's highly flammable. And so, of course, as it comes hurtling through the air, it's going to be on fire. Fire and brimstone. But there's another thing that is important to understand, and that is that sulfur robs an area of oxygen. I believe it even robs an area of carbon dioxide. I don't remember exactly how that is. But one of the things that you see in the South primarily is that if you're wanting to get rid of pests, you will utilize sulfur in the removal or in the cleansing of your house. For example, if you want to get rid of cockroaches, because it's one of the only compounds that is known to totally totally eliminate cockroaches. Yeah, nuclear waste won't, but um, sulfur will. Um, and they will do it by basically bagging your home and then lighting some sulfur on fire and with ethane contained uh, canisters, of course. But nobody's allowed to be in that home for several hours while that uh, um, sulfur is burning, and while then for several hours after it is finished, while it fumigates the entire home. Imagine what such a widespread amount of brimstone and fire would do then to the vegetation. Evening, Skylar. And is it any wonder then that there's no vegetation or very little vegetation within the area of the Dead Sea that used to be the cities of the plain? So here's the thing. God's message to Lot is to escape for your life. He says, furthermore, look not behind thee. And finally, do not stay in the plain. Okay. He tells him to escape to the mountain. So there's a 4-part instruction. 1, escape for your life. 2, do not look behind thee. 3, do not stay in the plain. And 4, you are to escape to the mountain. Lot asks a reprieve, saying, the mountain's too far. Can I instead escape to this small city of the plain? God says, okay. But he did not change his instruction to escape for your life. He did not change his instruction to look not behind thee. I guess he did change his instruction to about staying in all the plain, because he obviously allowed him to escape to the town of Zoar, which was a city of the plain. Yet Lot enters into the gate of Zoar when the sun has risen upon the earth, and God rains down that brimstone and fire. And as he overthrows those cities and all the plain and the inhabitants that grow there and everything, or inhabitants of those cities and everything which grows upon the ground, Lot's wife looks back from behind him. And in Luke chapter 17, as Jesus is admonishing the disciples about the day which was going to come, wherein a certain judgment was going to happen, especially upon the nation of Israel as a nation. He says, in that day, he which shall be upon the housetop and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. He that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Remember Lot's wife. Well, let's back it up just a bit. Likewise also as it was in the days of Lot. They did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. In other words, it was a sudden destruction. And even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. In that day he which shall be upon the housetop and his stuff in the house, let him not come down. Don't look back. Don't regard what you have at home. You see, Lot was wasting away, or was delaying because of all his stuff, because of what he had in Sodom. And so the message was escape, make haste, leave. When it came down to it, Lot's wife, she looked back. The reasoning being, when you put these two verses together, 31 and 32, what you see is that Lot's wife was looking back. By implication, she's looking back at what she had in Sodom. Whether it was because of family that was still there, or because of what, hey, I left the iron on, or man, I left my good head covering, I left my good dress, I left my good china, whatever it be. She looked back for her stuff. And she became a permanent object lesson. If our stuff that we have is more important than God and more important than the way of Christ, we have some soul searching to do. Jesus says, whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it. Whosoever shall lose his life shall preserve it. Lot's wife looked back. And immediately she became a pillar of salt. Now, if you go looking around the Dead Sea, you're going to find many a formation which is called Lot's wife. The thing of it is after 1,000 years, do you really think that there's going to be much left of the pillar of salt that's Lot's wife? Why salt indeed? Tell me, CJ, what is the makeup of the human body? Hold on, I'm checking something real quick. Okay, so CJ says, I don't know if there is a good reason. There might be. Sam says, we are from dirt, dust. From dust thou art, to dust thou shalt return. Teresa says, salt. CJ says 70% water, 30% something else, roughly. In actuality, the majority of our body is salt water. Bet you didn't know that. If you take away water, if you instantly evaporate the water, what do you think you're going to have?
You'll have a pillar of salt.
Ta-da!
It's interesting.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking of Acts chapter 5, Ananias and Sapphira just dropped dead. God didn't kill them in that way, you know. So it makes me wonder what if there's
I
a
think there was
specific.
I think there was a double edge to this one. I think there was I think partly because of what was going on, um, but also, as in with fire and brimstone being rained down. But I think also it was a lasting memorial because she lasted, a pillar of salt is going to last a while. Um, Interesting fact is that water dripping through rock turns into
Does it turn into salt?
well, you have a stalactite or a stalagmite, don't you? From the mineral deposits. We could also say, perhaps, that she became a pillar of minerals. Um, that's interesting. Melak, which means powder, that is specifically salt, easily pulverized and dissolved. Salt, as a salt pit.
So should we think of table salt or ash?
More like sea salt.
Okay.
Um, this word 4417 used 28 times in the entire Bible. 27 times it's translated as salt. One time as salt pits. And this is the salt that was used for flavoring dishes. This was the salt that was used for um, offerings. For example, Leviticus 2:13, and every oblation of thy meat offering shalt thou season with salt. H4417. Neither shalt thou suffer the salt of the covenant of thy God to be lacking from thy meat offering. With all thine offerings thou shalt offer salt. So she became a pillar of flavoring, pillar of seasoning. So I mean, is that the reason why? Because because our body is such of, it is mainly made up of salt water. It's a good reason. Is it the only reason? Is it the real reason? Only God knows. Suffice it to say that she became a pillar of salt, and as such stands as a lasting memorial. Now, she probably isn't there anymore, having been wiped away in about 2,000 to 3,000 years worth of, maybe even almost 4,000 years worth of erosion. But I would hazard a guess to say that she is not a pillar of salt anymore. But her legacy still lives on, both in this story as well as in the account from Jesus when he says to remember her in conjunction with all of the do not return for the things of this world when the trouble and tribulation comes. So as I read that in regard to that, Luke 17, come on. No, that's not where I want to go. Luke 17:32, which I'm going to actually put right here on my cross reference before I forget about it. Save. Then we can say why she looked back and how we can make sure that we're not doing the same thing. So Abraham gets up early in the morning and he goes to where he had bargained with the Lord, and he looks towards Sodom and Gomorrah and all the land of the plain, and all he can see is smoke. Smoke. So, Abraham, while he doesn't see the actual destruction, he sees the evidence of the destruction. And God remembers Abraham sending Lot out of the destruction. Now, Lot, we left him at Zoar, and as the case would be, if you were the only survivor of all the other 4 cities of the plain, and your wife suddenly turned to a pillar of salt as you walk into the city, would you be one to would you be one that wants to stay there? Or would you want to be leaving there? Hello, Gloria. Good to see you. Lot couldn't take it. Knowing what he knew, knowing how close he came to destruction, knowing that his wife was no longer because of her disobedience, Lot becomes a hermit. He's lost everything. All he has is his 2 daughters. What is our reaction when we have a bad experience happen to us? it seems as if typically, what is the bad, or I said, what is our typical reaction when we have bad experiences happen to us? Yeah, not repeat it. Sam says we tend to mope and withdraw. CJ says some keep to themselves. So if we get if we have put ourselves, Maureen says sadness, if we have put ourselves out there, tried to make a new friend and got rejected, what is our typical reaction? Some people may mope about it. Some people get angry. Some people lash out. Most people tend to withdraw. Some people try that much harder. Feel like I did something wrong, says Gloria. When we have a bad experience happen to us, 9 times out of 10, people want to close themselves off so as not to have a repeat, like what Gloria said, not to um, go through the pain of it again. What did Lot do? There was just a couple of years ago, Disney put forth a popular movie. Kids really loved it. Matter of fact, that was like the number one requested album on the bus. They wanted to hear uh, the music album from that movie, because I will actually take along my Bluetooth radio um, station. Basically, what it does is a little thing that plugs into the power adapter or power outlet on the bus, and allows it, makes its own little radio station that I can tune my radio to. And so I will then Bluetooth connect to it with my phone and pump my playlist out over the radio on the bus. And Sam says he went to a cave and drank. Yes and no. Um, but a number of years, this particular movie was involving a family, and the daughter in the family was special, had special powers. And as a result of her powers, the father and mother make the decision to wall her up, to keep her from all forms of society. In fact, even the association of her younger sister, who they were afraid the older daughter would harm again. And that's our typical reaction when something bad happens. We wall ourselves off. We don't want we don't want to have that hurt. We don't want to feel that pain. And so what it does is it socially and emotionally and even spiritually damages us. Lot was no different. he goes up out of Zoar, and he goes into a mountain and walls himself off, closes himself off, shuts himself away, along with his 2 daughters. Remember, again, these are his 2 virgin daughters who have never known man, because he fears to dwell in Zoar, where they know him as the one who escaped from Sodom. And they would know him as that. It wouldn't take long for that message to be gossiped about, bandied about. And so he dwells in this cave in he and his 2 daughters. And they're there for so long that the daughters give up hope of ever finding men. And their biological clock is ticking. We need offspring. There's not a man on this earth that's going to want us, because here we are, hermits' daughters. And so the 2 make a pact. We're going to get our father drunk. Now, Sam says he went into a cave and drank. Do you notice, does it say that he made a habit of drinking? Sam? Notice that it says, "Come, let us make our father drink wine." It doesn't sound like this was a normal thing for him to do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had to make him drink the wine. He would already be in a drunken stupor most of the time anyway, right? So he went into, he just simply walled himself away, preferring to live a quiet life, out of the spotlight, away from where people would be wondering if he had anything to do with the destruction of the cities. Away from anywhere that he and his daughters might be harmed. And so the 2 daughters concoct a plan whereby they could get pregnant, each one in their own night. And Lot was none the wiser each morning. One may say that he wasn't much wiser until it actually, until several months down the road. But both of the daughters of Lot came to be by incest. And the same as the father of the Moabites. Now remember, who was the famous Moabite that we know of? All right, Sister T. CJ says Ruth. Well, you could have let them answer, CJ. I knew you knew. But Ruth was a Moabitess. She was a daughter of, was a Moabitess. So she was of the children of Lot. And she married into the family of David, into the lineage of David. And then we have the father of the Ammonites, as well. All right. So, yes, CJ. Don't you like how I did that without even mentioning the name of the movie? All right. So, we're going to pick up in 20 next week. It'd be that. Start. All right. Save. So we're going to pick up in Genesis chapter 20 next week, and things should begin to move a little bit faster. So thank you again for being with us throughout this journey as we began at the beginning and have journeyed through the book of Genesis. And as we go through our week, keep opening those pages, keep reading through the verses, keep studying to show yourself approved. I'll see you then. God bless in your walk with Him. Love you.